Just give me a signal. Oh, I guess we are live now. At least I hope so. So let's start then. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Hope you can hear me. And welcome on our expert session, which is related to the OpenShift and Google Cloud. And if Terka will show the slides, I can start and do the introduction. Thanks a lot. So my name is Jiří Kolář. I'm customer engineering lead in Revolgy. And I have also Niku here. Niku, can you introduce yourself?
Yeah, so hello, I'm Nicolae Ciobanu. I'm a partner engineer in Google Cloud. And welcome to the session.
Okay, thanks a lot. Niku, we're going to do joint presentation. So Niku is going to take some part which is Google related, and I'm going to take care of the rest, which is more or less Revolgy related stuff. So let me start. Let's start with actually overview of the topic. So what are we going to talk about? So very briefly, what is OpenShift? In case somebody don't know, OpenShift is a platform for running containerized apps, and it is enterprise Kubernetes distribution from Red Hat. Google Cloud Platform, well, basically it's a suite of computing services that actually runs on the same infrastructure at which Google use internally, right? And this is the part which Nico will talk about. And now to the challenge, why we are here today. Something we want to discuss and something you might be interested in is, well, let's say you already started using OpenShift, or you are planning to do so, or you are just in progress of using it, right? And then, okay, I have my OpenShift on premise, but I want to do a cloud like everybody else, right? So maybe I want to migrate my apps into cloud. And now simply the question, what should I do? How do I migrate into cloud, right? And this is when Revolgy comes in place, because we are specialized on cloud migrations. So let me briefly introduce Revolgy. So what we are doing, we are helping our customers to migrate into cloud, to take their workloads and migrate them into cloud, right? We have about 5 offices. We are around 60 people. We are centered around Prague. More importantly, we have about 13 years of experience in cloud. So we are doing exactly what I mentioned. We are helping our customers to migrate into cloud and also using the cloud in a more simple way, right? So we are Google Premier Partner. We worked with some interesting customers, which you can see on the right. And as I said, we do cloud migrations. We do managed services in cloud. We provide support to some of our customers on different levels, support their cloud solutions. Recently, also, we pretty much focus on FinOps, which became quite interesting topic for cloud, which is about controlling the spending in the cloud in a more complex way, and there's a whole methodology behind it. And of course, we provide professional services, so consultancy, etc., right? Especially to the customers we help to migrate. Then we provide consequently some other services as well. Great. One more thing to say about Revolgy. We are a Google Premier Partner for 11 years. We have some specializations in infrastructure. This is especially related to a cloud migrations, and actually also work transformation, because we also do Google Workspace as well. More importantly, we work with the Google on daily basis on a couple of different projects, and our partnership is actually quite strong especially in the last couple of years. And okay, maybe here I would like to hand over to Niku, and he's going to say a little bit about Google. Niku?
Yeah, Yeah, thanks. I will keep my camera off because I have some issues with the power, so I'm on LTE now, just not to have some issues with the connection. Okay, so I will add something here that you said, because it's not only a couple of projects between Google and Revolgy. We have a lot of them, and it's a really good collaboration between these two companies. But now, moving back to Google, well, if to talk about Google, usually when the first image that a lot of people are see when we say Google, it's exactly this white page. When well, actually this is the initial service that we provided. So you type some text, and in around 40 milliseconds the entire World Wide Web is searched, and you get an answer. But when you see this box, we at Google, we see the image that it's on the next slide. So this one, thanks Eji. uh, we see the decades of the infrastructure that enable this incredible simple experience. And by infrastructure, I don't mean just servers, even if there are a lot of servers there in our data centers. I mean servers, those data centers, power transmission, cooling, networking, operations, software, and so on. And you can think of GCP as Google opening this platform that was only available for Google, and making it available for anybody around the world. But for some of you, this might be not so relevant, because you are not trying to build, I don't know, Gmail or the same search. You have your business, you have your problems with that business, and you are trying to solve them. So the question is not how you can build Google, but how Google's infrastructure can help you achieve what you are trying to do. And one thing about this is coming from our mission. So our mission is, if you go on the next slide, is to accelerate every organization's ability to digitally transform and reimage their business through data-powered innovation. So there is a bunch of words here. Let's highlight only a few of them, and you'll see the highlighted ones in the next slide that I have. Yeah. So here, so first one is every organization. Why every organization? Because we believe that you don't have to be a big company, a big corporation, to benefit of Google's innovation. So if you are only a 1 or 2 person startup that just trying to start, I don't know, an application quickly, or you are 100 employees company, or a big corporation, again, Google services are available for you. So regardless of your size, we can help you together, of course, with our partners like Revolgy. We can help you use Google technology and our innovations. Now, how you are helping this? It comes to the notion of the second highlighted part: data-powered innovation. If you think about our Google consumer experience, it's very diverse. We have maps, we have Android, the Gmail, search, all these things. But in many ways, what binds them together is this notion of data-powered innovation. By helping you finding meaning in the data, being the World Wide Web data, or your inbox, or traffic routes, or bus schedule. So I will talk to you about how Google Cloud can help you and can help you achieve your business goals. And I will split this. I splitted this in 3 different sections. So I will start with the first section on the next slide, which is the infrastructure modernization. So we offer you the infrastructure for you to securely and reliably run your existing systems. Along the way, to lower costs, increase uptime, get more secure to run the same infrastructure that Google runs on. Uh, like the most of cloud providers, we offer compute capacity in the regions around the world, and the number of those regions are growing year by year. But where we differentiate ourselves is the network that connects those regions, and that includes the subsea cables to connect our regions in one seamless global network. Then it's the security part, where we are applying security checks at every layer of the stack. So including the identity, hardware, operations, data services, in also putting some custom hardware inside our services that verifies that the boot RAMs have not been tampered since it was manufactured, and of course all the data is encrypted in the cloud. So the second part, the second section is on the next slide. Next slide, please. So the second part is data management, data analytics. Data and analytics. So some of the most important workloads that customers will run are the data workloads. This can be the databases that runs the company business, or it can be data warehouses used to get understanding of the understanding. And we offer a range of services for data and analytics, starting with databases until the cutting edge artificial intelligence technology to find the patterns in that data. Well, of course, if you want to run a database on virtual machine, of course you can run it in GCP on our compute engine. But if you want just to use the service and not take care of the resources where the database is running, then GCP can in GCP you can choose from a range of fully managed databases, from Redis, document database, HBase, managed SQL, Microsoft SQL, MySQL, Postgres, and so on, until Cloud Spanner, the mission critical database. Again, on analytics part, I would like to mention BigQuery, for example, our serverless data warehousing solution that can scale to 100 plus petabytes of data. So where you just upload the data and run the queries. Everything else it can care by Google. After that, visualizations tools, and of course the machine learning and AI chapter, where you can create your own solutions, or you can use the APIs that we already have, or to get your insights from the data. And the last on the next slide, the last part is application development. So the companies are not just running the software that other companies are built. Yeah, some organizations of all sizes have software that they create themselves, and we can help those companies build that software faster and better, and have the flexibility to run the software whatever the business requires to run, being that Google Cloud, on your own infrastructure, or other cloud providers. So these three areas that I just wanted to highlight. Now I will hand over back to Jiří to talk about exactly this infrastructure that we have in Google and how you can run the applications on some solutions that we have.
Thanks a lot, Nico. That was great. And before I get to the infrastructure part, let me a little bit do a small review around containers and OpenShift. I guess most people looking at this video, they know about these, but just to make sure and be completely clear, let's just make a small rehearsal. So let's say containers or container, very important. It's an isolated sandbox or process running within an operating system. On the other hand, it's also a packaging of an application, and it's a single unit of deployment, right? So your app can consist of one or more containers. And one more thing too important to say about containers, they are smaller than virtual machines, right? Because they don't carry the operating system. They are just a process within the operating system. So these are the three most important things I find the most important. Different people say different things about containers, you know. Second and very important thing is a Kubernetes. This is a open source project which is with us for a few years. This is it's actually a lifecycle orchestrator for containers. So that's something which manage and spin up the containers. So it orchestrates the lifecycle. It actually also manages the resources that the containers are using, things like storage and networking, etc. Right? OpenShift, something I already mentioned. This is a Red Hat's Kubernetes distribution. It's worth of saying that Red Hat was the first one who was creating something like this, like enterprise Kubernetes distribution. So they are there from the very beginning, which is really good because they are experienced guys. On the other hand, they are far from being around the vanilla Kubernetes. So they spend a lot of time on developing their specific solutions, which are built on top of Kubernetes. So if you look on the community Kubernetes itself or the other distributions, you might find Red Hat being a bit far from the vanilla one, right? Which can be an advantage, can be also a disadvantage, right? One more thing which I believe is important to say about Google and Red Hat. So both Google and Red Hat are number one Kubernetes contributors since the very beginning, right? So there is Google, Red Hat, and then everybody else who is contributing to this open source project. And also worth of saying that Google and Red Hat are partners in this crime, but at the same time there are also competitors because each of them have their own product. So this is this typical relationship which is very common these days, and especially when run open source, right? So let me dig a little bit more into OpenShift. Few things which worth saying about it, about this platform, that it's very good for self-managed deployments, right? So things like deploying in virtual machine infrastructure, bare metal, and all the major clouds. It's very flexible. It's good when it comes to a deployment and lifecycle automation because Reddit is trying to do this since the very beginning. They are also very strong in hybrid scenarios where you combine the infrastructures above. So you're running something on-prem in your infrastructure and you try to run something in the cloud. And one more and important thing which I believe is worth of saying about OpenShift, this is a kind of differentiator against the other Kubernetes distributions. It's backed by the operating systems from Red Hat, which are well known and they are really good. So especially Red Hat Enterprise Linux and Red Hat CoreOS. This is more lightweighted version, which is being used for containers. So these are definitely advantages of OpenShift and something which is really good about it, right? On the other side, things that maybe not everybody has to be happy with is the fact that since OpenShift is really quite here for a while, it's very opinionated. It's quite tight with the Red Hat ecosystem, which can be really good when you are inside of the ecosystem, but also can be a bit of a problem when you are not so much inside this, right? So if you are not using so many other Red Hat toolings and products, you might find it a bit more an obstacle rather than the advantage, right? That's something which is fair to say. And I have to say recently, as all of the major cloud providers created their managed Kubernetes services, this is basically Google Kubernetes Engine. It's Amazon Kubernetes distribution, and there is also managed service from Microsoft, which runs on Azure. For Red Hat, it's quite tough to compete with these managed services, right? Because cloud providers offer them right inside the cloud, quite integrated with the cloud ecosystem, which is also a case of Google, and it's something we are going to talk about quite heavily today, right? And Nico is going to say a little bit more about this. So I asked Nico if he could explain each of the container runtime or container products they have within the portfolio. So this might be the next part. Nico, if you could explain a little bit about this. Here's your slide.
Yeah. Thanks. So I will share a few words about these three products. So it's GKE, Google Kubernetes Engine, the CloudRun, and of course Antos. So let's start with the first one. So if you move please to the next slide. So its first one is of course the Kubernetes Engine. And well, I will give you only some, let's say, the feature that we are considering that are most important for our customers. So first one, it's security. So it's a secured way to manage and operate Kubernetes by default. With software supply chain, security, and trusted networking. So if to talk about security by default, it's a hardened GKE with strong security defaults beyond industry standards, including security including identity and access, certified images, data encryption, private clusters. On the trusted networking part, it has a container native networking for enterprise workloads supported in GKE. Some other example to mention is it's the global VPC, the global load balancing that you can use, networking policies. Another product from our side, the Cloud Armor for the management, for the networking. So on the software supply chain part, it helps you verify, enforce, and improve security of infrastructure components and packages used for the container images, like binary authorizations, vulnerability scanning, managed based image. On the next one, reliable, it helps you reduce operation overhead of Kubernetes with hassle-free operations, strong availability, and of course multi-tenancy. So if to talk a bit of each of the let's say the features that you can see in bold on the slides, if to talk about the first one, hassle-free operations, it means that it operates GKE through the custom and advanced automation beyond OSS capabilities. I mean, auto repairing, auto upgrading of nodes, auto scaling, auto provisioning. On the strong availability part, it's GKE. It's highly it has higher reliability. Sorry. It by using global regions, our SRE monitoring, regional clusters. On the multi-tenancy part, you can achieve it with usage metering and with the container isolations. On the agile side, you can improve the speed and ease of use with applications accelerators, enchanted development productivity, and workload portability. So this is short about GKE. If you want to know more, also Revolgy and Jiří can have another session with you, and you will like the product. So if to move to the next one, it's CloudRun. So actually, CloudRun, it's a managed compute platform that enables you to run containers that are invocable via requests or events. So CloudRun, it's serverless. It abstracts away all the infrastructure management, so you can focus on what matters most: building great application. Everything else, it's on our side, and you don't need to worry about this. So basically, CloudRun automates or makes easier many of things for developers building solutions on Kubernetes. Yeah, like with thanks to the features like automatic request-based scaling, to somehow to counteract the unpredictable usage patterns, automatic code config management as unit. An easy way to leverage the power of Istio service mesh, of course, for the traffic management, policies, telemetry. Also CloudRun, it's pluggable. It integrates well with other GCP products like Cloud Build, the Stack Driver, and can be extended with partners. For example, with GitLab or Datadog. And the last one, Jiří, please, on the next slide. It's Antos. So there are three common trade-offs: security versus agility, reliability versus cost, and portability versus consistency. That keeps IT from giving the business business what you want. So everyone in IT is familiar with these three trade-offs because they have been making them for decades. Antos, it's a different kind of hybrid cloud. So it's a hybrid solution, and it's a different. So it overcomes some of these three trade-offs. So you don't have to compromise between agility and reliability, or between choice and consistency. With Antos, you can manage applications across on-premise and cloud providers without lock-in. So you can build your applications once, and you can run them anywhere. You can run them in Google Cloud. You can run them, as I said, on your own data center, or you can run them in the other cloud providers' data centers. So on the next slide, so these are the three products that I mentioned, but GCP offers an end-to-end solution for application. If to talk about Kubernetes, an application creation as I started. So we offer an entire package and entire solution, end-to-end solution for the application modernization, starting with our CAMP, Cloud Application Modernization Program. It's an end-to-end program that used to assess customer workloads, and after that implement the program recommendations. After the next one, it's Cloud Code, some popular plugins for popular IDEs. Cloud Build that I mentioned earlier is a service that executes or builds on Google Cloud Platform infrastructure. Artifact Registry, a single place for your organizations to manage Kubernetes container images and language packages. And already CloudRun, GKE, and there is also and of course the monitoring part with the Google Cloud Operation Suite, or how our customers know it, the Stack Driver. And of course, Antos, which is another solution. So that was let's say the products that I have in Google. Now I will give the mic back to Jiří to talk about how you can use these products for the OpenShift part.
Okay, thanks a lot, Niku. That was great. Thanks a lot for such an overview. The reason why I asked Niku to give this kind of overview and why we are not digging deep into the technical details is because, as he mentioned, we plan to organize some of the other webinars. So there will be definitely more from Revolgy, where we're going to focus on each of these products and dig into it deep, and also see a bit the architecture and the application. So this was very much just to give you an overview what you can see in the Red Hat portfolio. I promise we're going to dig deeper into these later. So one thing I want to go after this overview, after we heard about OpenShift and we heard about the Google technologies, let's go back to our initial idea, which I was trying to set at the beginning. So that this challenge where I say, okay, I have my OpenShift, I want to go into cloud, I want to make sure this is successful. Maybe I want to bring my OpenShift into cloud. Maybe I want to use something from the Google ecosystem. What should I do? And I repeat an important thing. For us as a Revolgy, the important part is the success on your side, right? So we want to be here not to push you into this or the other direction. We want to be here to actually listen to you and understand what are your needs, what's your current situation, where you are going, etc. Right? So I will show something which looks quite complicated from the first or the first view. Let me explain a little bit what this is about, right? So here on top, this is going to be about the migration scenarios, because there are quite some. And as I said, this is about you and deciding where you are going, where you want to go, right? So this is the assist situation, right? Maybe that you are just implementing or adopting OpenShift or starting to using it for your production workloads, or you're already running OpenShift and you're running it on premise, right? Or maybe you run already a hybrid solution, so you have some stuff in whatever cloud, and you maybe run OpenShift on premise as well and integrate these together. Or another option, which is also viable here, you already running OpenShift in Google or any other cloud, right? So this is as is. That's where you are, right? These are like the starting, sorry, the starting point, right? And now about the to be, right? And this should include all the options that Niku discussed, but also the OpenShift, right? So on the bottom, what you can see are the possible next steps for you, right? What you might want to do is either you say, okay, I really like OpenShift, I want to stay with it, right? So you can go with something which is a managed OpenShift in GCP. So Google Cloud Platform offers OpenShift as a service. Of course, this is some offering which is joint offering of Red Hat and Google. So in such a scenario, you simply get the OpenShift running on Google Cloud. So the OpenShift itself is going to be supported by Red Hat, and the underlying infrastructure is going to be supported by Google, right? There is a second option which is also possible, and it's exactly the same when it comes to a support. Just the difference is that you install and manage the entire OpenShift platform yourself, right? This is an option number 2. And then there are these like purely Google options on the next in the next sections. So you can also say that I want to maybe run Antos, which is a very similar product like OpenShift, just from Google. It's the one that Nico mentioned, right? So maybe you like Antos, and maybe you still want to stick with this hybrid scenario to run something on in cloud, run something on prem, or combine these together, right? So maybe you want to have a multi-cloud strategy, right? So maybe you want to use Google Cloud, but also Azure, or you use Amazon, and combine these together, right? So there, the Antos is quite relevant because, as Niku mentioned, you can combine these together, right? And you can run it cross-cloud or cross-infrastructures, right? So this can be a reason why you might want to be interested in Antos, right? The previous scenarios, which are much more about OpenShift, are for cases where, for example, you really love your OpenShift, you are deep in the Google ecosystem and you want to stay there, which is definitely possible. or you run some specific workloads which are just for you much better to be run on OpenShift or anything else, right? So for these cases, you would probably stay here. If you like Antos or you like the features that Antos brings and you want to be completely go with Google, what you can consider is to migrate out of the OpenShift, which is your current state, into maybe Antos or some other Google products, right? So as Nico mentioned, the other option is the Google Kubernetes Engine, probably something something you might consider if you don't want to operate your infrastructure, right? So you want to have a managed service. Maybe you don't want to care about upgrades of the container platform, and also possible that you want to integrate heavily with Google ecosystem, right? This could be that Google Kubernetes Engine is the right option for you, which means kind of migration from the OpenShift. However, depending on your scenario, this can be difficult. It can be just reconfiguration, or can be also migration of certain apps, or can be a bit more complex. And last option I want to mention is something what Nico said is CloudRun, and this is basically when you don't want to even care about your containers, you just want to deploy the code and run, right? And this could be in the case that you are on the OpenShift on-prem. This can mean significant redesign of your apps. It doesn't have to. It very much depends on your scenario, right? So as you can see on this picture, the journey from OpenShift on-prem into whatever you decide to do in the Google Cloud can be quite specific for your needs, right? And that's where we come in play at Revolgy, right? So what we want to do, and what we're always doing with our clients, we just look on their needs, discuss their needs, do the discovery. We have quite some experience with this. So what we often do, we just discuss with our clients what's their expectations, what they're willing to do, why they want to do, what's the motivation, right? And the idea is to make a good qualified decision and decide which scenario, which migration could be viable. If, for example, makes sense to take your on-premise OpenShift and maybe start running these containers in parallel in Google Kubernetes Engine in the cloud, or just do the complete migration, right? These are the aspects, and these are things to be discussed and have to be figured out, right? So let me talk a little bit on how do we do these magic migrations, right? I had to use this picture, right? I was joking with my colleague yesterday that whoever understands what's wrong with this picture will also understand how we do the migrations. But actually, it's much more simple. So the picture is just a paper version of a Mobius loop. I want to show it here because it's very important when it comes to an agile approach, right? So when it comes to the migration, we believe the agile approach works quite well. So the part which where the discovery and delivery are going in cycles, we believe that's very important, and we also believe that's something which makes the organizations quite flexible when they approach the migration itself. However, of course, you can't do everything in an agile way. So this is a little bit bigger picture how we actually do this, right? So we understand that every migration for a customer, it's a kind of project, right? It's a decision to make, which has to be planned, which has to be justified from budgeting, from organizational purposes, everything, right? So typically we start here, we do a bit of the planning, we do the kickoff. Then this is the assessment part. In this part, we are usually heavily doing a discovery, trying to find the information from the customer, trying to understand where he is. We ask many of the questions which I mentioned in the previous slide, right? And we are trying to gather the information on where the customer is, right? This can be also the moment where you do a certain important decisions which are rather general and which define how the migration is going to look like. However, the details of the migration, we are trying to, as I mentioned before, find out during the implementation. which basically means that we do the discovery and delivery in circles, right? This is an agile way. We're using agile methods. So typically these are short sprints, and typically this is about working and migrating specific workloads and applications. So what we do here very often is we have a look on every application, see how the migration could be, see if there are some potentials for improvement, how it can be optimized when it's running in cloud. We implement the migration itself, means that we prepare the infrastructure in the cloud and prepare the actual migration to make sure that the migration of the workload is smooth and that you can continue using the workload when it's migrated into cloud, right? So this is usually done in this agile way. Very important part. Some people believe that, okay, migrated the apps, everything is ready, we are done, right? But this is the very important part, which is the adoption and the handover. This is basically when you start running your workloads in cloud. But more importantly, we hand over to you and we let you understand what are the potential benefits of running the applications in cloud, what can be the next steps, what can be potential issues, what you should be careful about looking at, etc., etc., right? So this is actually the moment where we do a massive knowledge transfer to our customers, right? So from your perspective, let's say from the point of view that you want to enable your team and be able to control the things in cloud, this is very important step, right? This is maybe the step where not so much code is written, but it's rather a step where a lot of important things are being set, right? And then of course it's something, then comes the day two operations, and that's very much up to you whether you prefer us to actually operate the apps. We can do it, as you know, we are doing managed services, or also possible you can of course operate the apps on your own and we can just help you and give you some advices on how to do that, right? So this was about the migration process itself. That's how we approach it, right? Of course, every migration is a project and every customer is unique. So we very much tend to try to understand the customer needs, right? So let me dig into one more important part. And this is, again, something for you to think about. And this is, of course, something which has to be addressed during the discussion with us. And these are the general topics which are important to think about during the migration of the OpenShift, right? So I put it into 4 different categories. So typically, if you consider the migration and you are thinking of the scenario, shall I just bring my OpenShift into cloud? Shall I migrate to Google tools? Shall I do whatever else? These are the important things to take in account, right? So when it comes to the application perspective, definitely something which worth of checking is the CI/CD tools, because there are different tools being used by different vendors, right? So, for example, Red Hat with the OpenShift tends to use very much things like Jenkins in the old days. Recently tried to also start using Tekton, while Google has some things like Cloud Build and things which are being used in the Google Cloud, which might be slightly different. Of course, there is a lot of third-party tools which can be used on both platforms, right? So to look at this and think about these, right? Also, build process then can be quite specific in OpenShift compared to the other container platforms, and also rate of checking. So because the migration should be all about the applications, so this is very important section and very important to make sure this is good, because you want to end up with a platform which helps you to develop and deploy your apps, right? This is actually the grow of the entire thing. When it comes to a service mesh, I don't see so many issues. So whoever is using service mesh in OpenShift, this could be quite similar in the Google solutions, because both are using Istio. So I see this should be quite okay. I mentioned this one because Google has a very strong offering of machine learning and AI tools. So that's something you might not be using when you are on OpenShift on-prem, but it's definitely something you should be checking out when you go into Google Cloud, because this is a significant added value of Google. That's something that the Google is really good in, right? So I worth mentioning here. Good. When it comes to a platform and infrastructure, of course, you should have a look on how you manage your clusters across different environments. It's very important to take in consideration whether on your OpenShift 3 or 4, because these are quite different technologies, especially from the infrastructure perspective. So this could definitely influence your decision. And then things like the underlying infrastructure which you use on-prem, load balancers, networking, storage, right? Some of these probably Google Cloud is going to make your life much easier here. So these definitely worth of discussing and see what can it bring, how to change, what can I do new, how can I do better, right? So when it comes to operation part, that's also the case when Google Cloud should make the things easier for you, right? So when it comes to a cluster provisionings, monitoring, logging, especially when it comes to a Google product, this is very automated, but also even the running the OpenShift in Google Cloud is should make this quite easier, right? Also, there are many customers use a specific third-party tools for image scanning and container security. So yeah, these could be also taken in consideration. And then when it comes to a team overall, you should take in consideration how much you like the Red Hat ecosystem, what the Google ecosystem can bring, and then think of actually what makes sense, would make more sense for you when you consider the migration, right? So these are some of the basic things which definitely worth of thinking, discussing, and seeing how to do this, because these might be the challenges which you approach when you start thinking of the migration. Doesn't matter if you migrate OpenShift to a Antos or GKE, or you just bring your OpenShift into cloud. These things are the things which you should think about, how you're going to do them better in future, right? Because of course your cloud migration should be a step forward. That's clear. Good. We are getting close to the end of the webinar, so let me mention one thing which I nevertheless find very important. Why should Revolgy be your partner in this cloud migration? Something I would like to highlight here, we successfully migrated over 50 customers into cloud. So we have quite an experience, not just from the technology perspective, but more importantly from the process perspective. So we know the usual problems of the migration. We know how the project happens. We know what should be careful about. And this is very valuable knowledge, which our customers like a lot. We are doing some of these migrations right now, which involve the migration of the OpenShift. So we might also have a very good experience that you might like if you're considering this scenario. We are definitely, our advantage is to help you to make qualified decisions, but you should make decisions on your own. We are migration expert. We are not trying to push you anywhere. We just want you to make a good decision which will support and boost your business, right? And last but not least, let me mention one thing. The very important part of every migration is the know-how transfer. I actually believe this is a key for every migration. So very important, we want to do it with you, not for you. So we want you to be present, and the knowledge transfer from Revolgy into your teams is key for us, for a very simple reason. We want to make this cloud migration to be a sustainable change, right? Because if you look at the nature of this business in cloud, when we do the migration with our customers, this is just the beginning, right? There's the start of the journey. And usually we stay with our customers much longer because they usually use our services, very often use support, or they just do migrate more workloads, right? So for us, it's very important that the migration is successful, because this is just usually first step into the partnership with our customers, and we work with them much further, right? So this is probably it. I really appreciate your attention. I hope you liked the video. I'm really happy that Niku was here with me today. That was really helpful. That was great. Thanks a lot, Niku.
My pleasure.
That was perfect. And we work very closely with Google, so I believe we are going to do some more webinars and very soon, and you will find out much more about what we are doing together and what could be interesting for you. So here you can find some of our contacts. You can contact me, you can contact our sales, or just go on our website and have a look on our case studies, what we've done with the other customers. So I hope we hear or see you soon. So that's it from my side. Have a great day.